Today, New Orleans accepted final bids from companies vying to remove 4 Confederate statues from the city. There are about 1,500 public tributes to the Confederacy nationwide, and a growing number of lawsuits challenging whether they should be taken down. A recent federal court decision clearing the way in New Orleans marks the defeat of a ferocious legal campaign to protect the statues. But the battle over what they stand for, and who controls their narrative, is far from settled.
There was some graffiti on the monument probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I said to our church administrator, "There's a monument to Jefferson Davis?" And she's like, "Yeah, and we're looking at it." And I remember what I said, maybe we should leave the graffiti up. The monuments do not tell the story of the United States or the Civil War or the Confederacy. They celebrate white supremacy. People who put these monuments up to make it clear who was up and who was down, and that people better fall in line. And when we gather, do we want to gather under Confederate monuments, for goodness sakes?
I have always known that the statues were there and really didn't give much attention to them. I was kind of straddled the fence. I said, well, they've been there and it is a part of history, but those individuals that are depicted there did not always represent all the people. I began to have a change of heart.
We build monuments to what we value, and that's a really horrible statement for us, that we value people who fought for slavery.
Jefferson Davis, Robert E. Lee, Beauregard, these are all great men of history by any measure. This is one of our most beautiful monuments. I mean, it has everything. With the way it's presented on the pedestal in this traffic circle that was made for this monument, this is just crazy, If you start disassemble pieces of our diverse culture, what are you going to have?
I feel to believe that by moving these monuments, sometime history can repeat itself. So therefore, we have to be very careful. I would not want to see this history be lost whatsoever.
The point of this was never about a white supremacy thing. New Orleanians wanted to honor their sons who served, and it still goes on today with all of our wars. So I think the mayor just used it to make ugly political points with this whole thing.
The future does not belong to sleepy southern towns that revere the Confederacy. And I am a little bit surprised about how intensely some people are hanging on to this false version of our past. That surprised me. And essentially, these statutes were actually a lie. They were actually a perversion of history, not a recitation of history.
It's insulting to me. There is no justification. History has already rendered its verdict that slavery was wrong, the Civil War was wrong. So it's insulting to us that we have to dignify and engage in a debate with people when history has already rendered its verdict. We lived in the South where white supremacists wrote the textbooks. History is constantly being rewritten, and black people now have voice to talk about our history. And our verdict, of course, is that we don't want these white supremacy statues here.
The people of New Orleans have a right to decide what goes on the pieces of property that the people of New Orleans own. And I feel very certain that years from now, when people look back, they're going to go, well, that seemed so obvious.